Chapter 2. The day after the night that the elephant arrived, Peter was again at the market square. The fortune-teller's tent was gone, and Peter had been entrusted with another floret. The old soldier had talked at great length and in excruciating detail about what Peter must purchase with the coin. Bread for one, and it must be bread that is at least a day old, 2 days preferably, but 3 days old bread, if he could find it, would be the best of all. "Actually, see if you cannot locate bread with mold growing on it," said Villeneuve. "Old bread is the most excellent preparation for being a soldier. Soldiers must become accustomed to rock-hard bread that is difficult to chew. It makes for strong teeth, and strong teeth makes for a strong heart, and therefore a brave soldier. Yes, I believe it to be true. I know it to be true." How hard bread and strong teeth and a strong heart were connected was a mystery to Peter, but as Villeneuve spoke to him that morning, he began increasingly obvious that the old soldier was once again in the grips of a fever, and that not much sense would be gotten from him. "You must ask the fishmonger for 2 fish and no more," Villeneuve said. Sweat shone on his forehead. His beard was damp. "Ask him for the smallest ones. Ask him for the fish that others would turn away. Why, you must ask him for those fish that other fish are embarrassed to even refer to as fish. Come back with the smallest fish, but do not, I repeat, come back to me empty-handed with the lies of fortune-tellers upon your lips." I correct myself. To say the lies of a fortune-teller is a redundancy. What comes from the mouths of fortune-tellers is by definition a lie, and you, Private Duchesne, you must find the smallest possible fish. So Peter stood in the market square, in line at the fishmonger's, thinking of the fortune-teller and his sister and the elephant and fevers and exceptionally small fish. He also thought of lies, and who told them, and who did not, and what it meant to be a soldier, honorable and true. And because of all the thoughts in his head, he was listening with only half an ear to the story that the fishmonger was telling to the woman ahead of him in line. "Well, he wasn't much of a magician, and none of them was expecting much. You see, that's the thing. Nothing was expected." The fishmonger wiped his hands on his apron. "He hadn't promised them nothing special, and they wasn't expecting it either." "Who expects something special nowadays, anyway?" said the woman. "Not me. I've worn myself out expecting something great." She pointed at a large fish. "Give me one of them mackerels, why don't you?" "Mackerel it is," said the fishmonger, slinging the creature onto a scale. It was a very large fish. Villeneuve would not have approved. Peter surveyed the fishmonger's selection. His stomach growled. He was hungry, and he was worried. He could not see anything alarmingly small enough to please the old soldier. "And also give me a catfish," said the woman. 3 of them. I want 'em with the whiskers longish, don't I? Tastier that way." The fishmonger put 3 catfish on the scale. "In any case," he continued, "they was all sitting there, the nobility, the ladies and the princes and the princesses, all together in the opera house expecting nothing much. And what did they get? I don't even pretend to know," said the woman. "What fancy people get is most assuredly a mystery to me." Peter shifted nervously from foot to foot. He wondered what would have happened if he did not bring home a fish that was sufficiently small. There was no predicting what Villeneuve would say or do when he was in the grips of one of his terrible recurring fevers. "Well, they wasn't expecting an elephant. That much is for true." "An elephant?" said the woman. "An elephant," said Peter. At the sound of the impossible word on the lips of another, he felt a shock travel from the tip of his feet to the top of his head. He stepped backwards. "An elephant," said the fishmonger. "Come right through the ceiling of the opera house, landed on top of a noblewoman named Lavon." "An elephant," whispered Peter. "Ha!" said the woman. "Ha, ha! It most surely couldn't have." "It did," said the fishmonger. "Broke her legs." "La, the humor of it! And don't my friend Marcel wash the linens of Madame Lavon? Ain't the world as small as it can be?" "Just exactly," said the fishmonger. But please," said Peter, "an elephant. An elephant? Do you know what you say?" "Yes," said the fishmonger. "I say an elephant." and she came through the roof. Didn't I just say that too? Where is this elephant now, please? Said Peter. The police have got her, said the fishmonger. The police? Said Peter, who put his hand up to his hat. He took his hat off and put it back on and took it off again. Is the child having some sort of hat-related fit? Said the woman to the fishmonger. It's just as the fortune-teller said, said Peter. An elephant. How's that? Said the fishmonger. Who said it? It doesn't matter, said Peter. Nothing matters except that the elephant has come and what that means. And what does it mean? Said the fishmonger. I would assuredly like to know. That she lives, said Peter. That she lives. And ain't that grand, said the fishmonger. We were always happy when people live, ain't we? Sure, and why not, said the woman. But what I want to know is what became of him who started it all, the magician. Imprisoned him, said the fishmonger, didn't they? Put him in the most terrible cell and all, and thrown away the key. The prison cell to which the magician was confined was small and dark, but there was, in the cell, one window, very high up. At night the magician lay atop his cloak on his mattress of straw and looked out the window into the darkness of the world. The sky was almost always thick with clouds, but sometimes, if the magician stared long enough, the clouds would grudgingly part and reveal one exceedingly bright star. I intended only lilies, the magician said to the star. That was my intention, a bouquet of lilies. This was not, strictly speaking, the truth. Yes, the magician had intended to conjure lilies, but standing on the stage in the Bliffendorf Opera House before an audience that was indifferent to whatever small diversion he might perform, and was only waiting for him to exit for the real magic, the music of the virtuoso violinist, to begin, the magician was struck suddenly and quite forcibly with the notion that he had wasted his life. So he performed that night the sleight of hand that would result in lilies, but at the same time he muttered the words of a spell that his magic teacher had entrusted to him long ago. The magician knew that the words were powerful and also, given the circumstances, somewhat ill-advised, but he wanted to perform something spectacular. And he had. That night at the Opera House, before the whole world exploded into screams and sirens and accusations, the magician stood next to an enormous beast and gloried in the smell of her. Dried apples, moldy paper, dung. He reached out and placed one hand on her chest, and felt for a moment the solemn beating of her heart. This, he thought, I did this. And when he was commanded later that night by every authority imaginable, the mayor, a duke, a princess, the captain of the police, to send the elephant back, to make her go away, to, in essence, disappear her, the magician had dutifully spoken the spell as well as the words themselves, backwards, as the magic required, but nothing happened. The elephant remained absolutely, emphatically, undeniably there, and her very presence serving as some indisputed evidence of his powers. He had intended lilies, yes, perhaps, but he also had wanted to perform true magic. He had succeeded. And so, no matter what words he may have spoken to the star that occasionally appeared above him, the magician could summon no true regret for what he had done. The star, it should be noted, was not a star at all. It was the planet Venus. Records indicate that it shone particularly bright that year. Chapter 3. The captain of the police of the city of Baltese was a man who believed most firmly in the letter of the law. However, despite repeated and increasingly flustered consultations of the police handbook, he could not find one word, one syllable, one letter that pertained to the correct method of dealing with a beast that has appeared out of nowhere, destroying the roof of an opera house and crippling a noblewoman. And so, with great reluctance, the captain of the police solicited the opinions of his subordinates about what should be done with the elephant. "Sir," said one of the young lieutenants, "she appeared. Perhaps, if we are patient, she will disappear." "Does the elephant appear as if she would disappear?" said the captain of the police. "Sir," said the young lieutenant, "I'm afraid I don't understand the question, sir." "I am quite aware of your lack of understanding," said the captain. "Your lack of understanding is as apparent as the elephant and even more unlikely to disappear." "Yes, sir," said the lieutenant. He furrowed his brow. He thought for a moment. "Thank you, sir, I'm sure." This exchange was followed by a long and painful silence. The gathered policemen shuffled their feet. "It's simple," said another policeman finally. "The elephant is a criminal. Therefore, she must be tried as a criminal and punished as a criminal." "But why is the elephant a criminal?" said a small policeman with a very large mustache. "Why is the elephant a criminal?" said the captain of the police. "Yes," said the small policeman, whose name was Leo Matien. "Why, if the magician threw a rock at a window, would you then blame the rock for breaking the window?" "What kind of magician throws rocks?" said the captain of the police. "What kind of sorry excuse for magic is that, the throwing of rocks?" "You misunderstand me, sir," said Leo Matien. "I meant only to say that the elephant did not ask to come crashing through the roof of the opera house. Would any sensible elephant wish for such a thing? And if she did not wish for it, then how can she be guilty of it?" "I ask you for possible solutions," said the captain of the police. He put his hands on top of his head. "Yes," said Leo Matien. "I ask what action should be taken," said the captain. He pulled at his hair with both his hands. Yes," said Leo Matien again. "And you talk to me about sensible elephants and what they wish for?" shouted the captain. "I think it is pertinent, sir," said Leo Matien. "He thinks it is pertinent," said the captain. "He thinks it is pertinent." He pulled at his hair. His face became very red. "Sir," said another policeman, "what if we found the elephant at home, sir?" "Yes," said the captain of the police. He turned around and faced the policeman who had just spoken. "Why did I not think of it? Let us dispatch the elephant immediately to the home for wayward elephants who engage in objectionable pursuits against their will. It is right down the street, is it not?" "Is it?" said the policeman. "Truly, I had not known. If there were so many worthy charitable institutions in this enlightened age, why, it's become nearly impossible to keep track of them all." The captain pulled very hard at his hair. "Leave me," he said softly, "all of you. I will solve this without your help." One by one, the policemen left the police station. The small policeman was the last to go. He lifted his hat to the captain. "I wish you a good evening, sir," he said, "and I beg that you consider the idea that the elephant is guilty of nothing except being an elephant." "Leave me," said the captain of the police. "Please." "Good evening, sir," said Leo Matien. "Good evening." The small policeman walked home in the gloom of the early evening. As he walked, he whistled a sad song and considered the fate of the elephant. To his mind, the captain was asking the wrong questions. The questions that mattered, the questions that needed to be asked were these. Where did the elephant come from? And what did it mean that she had come to the city of Baltese? What if she was just the first in a series of elephants? What if, one by one, all the mammals and reptiles of Africa were to be summoned to the stage of the opera houses all across Europe? What if, next, crocodiles and giraffes and rhinoceroses came crashing through roofs? Leo Matien had the soul of a poet, and because of this, he liked very much to consider questions that had no answers. He liked to ask, "What if?" and "Why not?" and "Could it possibly be?" Leo came to the top of a hill and paused. Below him, the lamplighter was lighting the lamps that lined the wide avenue. Leo Matien stood and watched as one by one the globes sprang to life. What if the elephant had come bearing a message of great importance? What if everything was to be irrevocably, undeniably changed by the elephant's arrival? Leo stood at the top of the hill and waited for a long while until the avenue below him was well and fully lit, and then he continued walking down the hill onto the lighted path toward his home. He whistled as he walked. "What if? Why not? Could it be?" sang the glowing, wondering heart of Leo Matien. "What if? Why not? Could it be?" Peter stood at the window of the attic room of the apartment's Polonaise. He heard Leo Matien before he saw him, always because of the whistling. He waited until the policeman appeared, and then he threw open the window and stuck his head out. He shouted, "Leo Matien! Is it true that there's an elephant and that she came through the roof and that she's now with the police?" Leo stopped. He looked up. Peter, he said. He smiled. Peter Augustus Duchesne, fellow resident of the apartments Polonaise, little cuckoo bird of the attic world. There is indeed an elephant. It is true, and it is true also that she is in the custody of the police. The elephant is imprisoned. Where? Said Peter. I cannot say, said Leo Metienne. I cannot say because I am afraid that I do not know. They are keeping it in the strictest possible secret, you see, what with elephants being such dangerous and provoking criminals. Close the window, called Vilna-Lutz from the bed. It is winter, and it is cold. It was winter, true. And true also it was quite cold, but even in the summertime, Vilna-Lutz, when he was in the grips of a strange fever, would complain of the cold and demand that the windows be shut. Thank you, said Peter to Leo Metienne. He closed the window and turned and faced the old man. What were you speaking of? Said Vilna-Lutz. What manner of nonsense were you shouting from windows? An elephant, sir, said Peter. It is true. Leo Metienne says it is true. An elephant has arrived. An elephant is here. Elephants, said Vilna-Lutz. Pooh! Imaginary beasts, denizens of imaginary bestiaries, demons of who knows where. He fell back against the pillow, exhausted by his diatribe, and then jerked suddenly upright again. Hark! Do I hear the crack of muskets and the boom of cannons? No, sir, said Peter, you do not. Demons, elephants, imaginary beasts. Not imaginary, said Peter. Real. This elephant is real. Leo Metienne is an officer of the law, and he says it is so. Pooh, says Vilna-Lutz. I say pooh to that mustachioed officer of the law and his imagined creature. He lay back against the pillow. He turned his head first to one side and then to the other. I hear it, he said. I hear the sounds of battle. The fight has begun. So, said Peter softly to himself, it must be true, mustn't it? There is an elephant now. So the fortune-teller was right, and my sister lives. Your sister, said Vilna-Lutz. Your sister is dead. How often must I tell you? She never drew breath. She did not breathe. They are all dead. Look over the field and you will see. They are all dead. Your father among them. Look, look, your father lies dead. I see, said Peter. Where is my foot? Said Vilna-Lutz. He cast a wild look around the room. Where is it? On the nightstand. On the nightstand, sir, corrected Vilna-Lutz. On the nightstand, sir, said Peter. There, said the old soldier. He picked up his foot. There, there, old friend. He gave the wooden foot a loving pat and then let his head sink back into the pillow. He pulled the blankets up over his chin. Soon, he said, soon I will put on the foot, and we will practice maneuvers, and you and I. We will make a great soldier out of you yet. You will become a man like your father. You will become, like him, a soldier, brave and true. Peter turned away from Vilna-Lutz and looked out the window at the darkening world. Downstairs, far below, a door slammed, and yet another, and then another. He heard a muffled sound of laughter and knew that Leo Metienne was being welcomed home by his wife. What was it like, Peter wondered, to have someone who knew you would always return and who welcomed you with open arms? He remembered being in a garden at dusk. The sky was purple and the lamps had been lit, and Peter was small. His father picked him up and tossed him high and then caught him, over and over again. Peter's mother was there, too. She was wearing a white dress that glowed bright in the purple dusk. Her stomach was large like a balloon. Don't drop him, said Peter's mother to his father. Don't you dare drop him. She was laughing. I will not, said his father. I could not, for he is Peter Augustus Duchesne, and he will always return to me. Again and again Peter's father threw him up in the air. Again and again Peter felt himself suspended in nothingness for a moment. Just for a moment. Then he was pulled back, returning to the sweetness of the earth and the warmth of his father's waiting arms. See, said his father to his mother, do you see how he always comes back to me? It was full dark now in the attic room of the apartment's Polonaise. The old soldier tossed from side to side in the bed. Close the window, he said. It is winter and it is cold. The garden that held Peter's father and mother seemed far away, so far that he could almost believe that the memory, the garden, had existed in another world entirely. But if the fortune-teller was to be believed, and she must be believed, she must. The elephant knew the way to that garden. She could lead him there. "Please," said Vilna-Lutz, "the window must be closed. It is so cold. It is so very, very cold."